Homegirlz del Corazón podcast. Today, this is Mary G, me, and I'm going to introduce you co-founder here,
Maria Elena, also known as Like Giggles. Hey everyone!
And today we have a special guest, and her name is
Melissa. Hi everybody.
Woo-hoo! Welcome!
Okay, so Melissa, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, a little bit about me. I am 39 years old. I have 5 kids, one on the way.
Congratulations!
Thank you. I was born in Escondido and I was raised in Valley Center, like the Valley Center, Palma area. I lived with my mom and dad, and for the most part, you know, it was a pretty good childhood. I did get pregnant at the age of 16. I had my son at 17. I did graduate high school. I honestly think back and I have no idea how I managed to do that, but I did it.
And you're still in the university.
Yes.
College student.
I did deal with a lot of like mental health issues that were never really like just properly addressed. So now that I know what I know, I understand it, and that's something that I instill in my kids today, to be able to talk about, you know, those feelings that are hard to understand. So I give them that knowledge, and I create that safe space for them, so they'll be able to get the proper help that they need and get the support that they need. Because I know when I was growing up, that was probably the hardest. That was probably the hardest thing that I went through, and not understanding it. It led me to drugs. It led me to hang out with gang members. It led me to the street life, domestic violence, and one thing that I did learn, and was that as much as I wanted to be a good mom, I couldn't, because I did not know how to love myself.
Yes.
And that's probably what I'm going to be focusing on today. It's about mental health, being a mom, and breaking the generational cycles of mental health. Because I know that, I mean, even today, people think that I got it together, but you guys, I really don't, you know. But I learned how to maneuver life, coping with mental health, and coping with it in positive ways.
Yes.
Thinking back, what do you think some of the circumstances that led you into that lifestyle?
It was depression. It was untreated depression and untreated anxiety.
The traumas that everybody knows.
And I was really thinking back, and I was like, okay, how far can I go back and remember feeling depression? And I honestly think that I was probably like 7 or 8.
What do you think some of the biggest challenges were
At that age?
Probably not knowing what the stomach aches were about.
Oh yes. That was painful, like almost nauseous. Yes.
Yeah. And I remember, I mean, it was even to the point where, I mean, one time that I do remember it happening was, you know, I was at my grandma's house, and you know, both my parents by that time they owned a business, and both my mom and my dad had to run the business, so they would leave me at my grandma's house, and it was always in the afternoon. I do remember that it was always in the afternoon, and it was always like between 6 and 7. Okay, I don't know.
It regulated itself.
Okay, right? Well, yeah, and now I look back and I'm piecing all the pieces together. And I remember my stomach hurt so bad that I would shake.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember telling my grandma, like, my stomach hurts, but her answer was to give me Pepto-Bismol.
And so I want to kind of jump in there really quick, right? Because mental health was not talked about.
Oh, no.
From from previous generations before, and what's so beautiful that we get to sit here as homegirls, right, having this conversation. Our grandparents didn't have these conversations, and so it was just easier. Like, here's Pepto-Bismol, because they didn't know what it was.
It wasn't like a natural conversation you just bring up at the table or something like that. Like,
so when you think about that and knowing what you know today, and because I want to kind of introduce how the connection to Homegirlz del Corazón is, right, is learning what you know now about mental health. What would you tell that little girl when she started having those experiences to advocate for you back then that you're now able to do for yourself?
Okay, so it's what I do with my daughter. Okay,
there you go.
It's what I'm doing with my daughter, because I'm also seeing the early signs of anxiety in her and the tummy aches, and that's probably one of the biggest signs in her. That also, I was very open to her school and letting them know, this is what I'm seeing. I need you guys to keep a closer eye on her, because if you guys are seeing this, I need to get the proper help for her and whatever resources are available to her.
Absolutely.
And I also talk to her. So she does. She not only is she dealing with anxiety symptoms, but also how to regulate her emotions, and that is probably one of the challenges that as a mom you go through is watching your kids go through things like that.
Absolutely.
And having to explain it to them so they can understand,
So they know what their body's
and they can eventually start regulating all those emotions and finding their way of dealing with it. So with her, I know that I'm doing something, and I'm instilling information in her little head, because now when she feels like that, her coping skill is to take a bath.
the warm water.
The warm water.
Comfort stuff.
Okay, and just maybe less than a month ago, I woke her up to go to school, and we were already running late. But she told me, "Mom, my tummy hurts." And she looked at me, and she told me, she's like, "Okay," she's like, "Can I take a bath?"
Warm bath.
And I was already overstimulated. I already had a lot of stuff going on that morning. I was already running late. But the empathy came, and I looked at her, and I'm like, yes.
I'm gonna run the warm water for you.
And she's like, "Do I have to shampoo my hair?" I'm like, "No, you can just
Take a swim.
just soak yourself in the water."
I love that.
The comfort, it's the comfort, the warmth
And
around your body.
So those are the things that I would tell my younger self, my inner niña. That's the things that I would tell her. Basically, what I'm telling my daughter today and what I'm instilling with her today. I would also talk to her about her day, and I would make that safe space, because that's something that I don't feel like I had.
Yeah, we did it back then.
And this is why I'm so open with my kids. She's the only girl out of four boys, so she is very outspoken. She's not shy. It's a blessing and a curse, you guys.
She's a handful.
But
She is. She's so adorable.
But I look at her, and everything that was not told to me,
You see it.
I make sure that I'm telling her, and I'm explaining things to her, so she's able to understand at a very young age what it is that she's going through, and that it's okay, and that there's ways to deal with it.
Absolutely. And that just is a beautiful way to give back to your little, like last night, right, in our meeting, right, talking about our inner child, and you're giving back to, you're able to do that for your daughter, right?
Correct.
And that's what makes change, and that's what, like, even when we talk about with homegirls, like self-love, you're teaching her, like, to advocate. That's a form of self-love.
Yes, and I praise you for that, for real. You talking about that, just about, like, I didn't have that for myself either, because what the traumas that I went through, and hearing you speak about that, like, that would have been something like I didn't have that at all.
Well,
I was shut down.
Yeah, and I think that's why, at least for me, I look back, and I mean, huffing air freshener. You know, at 13, I was huffing nail polish and sniffing nail polish and whiteout.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
By the age of 15 and a half, 16, I went straight to meth. Of like some type of hole. Like I felt like there was some type like there was something missing. Like, you know, and I mean, and even today, you know, my depression comes in waves. But today I'm able to push through and not stay stuck.
Yes.
Right? Because I think a lot of us, at least for me, my experience, at one point I stayed stuck. I stayed stuck, and it became normal to feel like that and to cope with things. And my coping mechanisms to deal with my mental health was to self-medicate by using.
Yep. And really quick, jumping onto that, right? Because we all, like they call it dual diagnosis, right? We just have a whole bunch of stuff that goes on, and like there's ADHD, PTSD, COD.
Psychotic disorder, everything they label. We're labeled.
But when we take ownership of it, those labels no longer are offensive to me. And so that's why I want to have this conversation right now is because being a former meth addict for 25 plus years, and then getting a late diagnosis with ADHD, I didn't realize that I was for a long time maintaining and actually helping my ADHD when I was doing meth. So I would notice when I'd have a relapse, it'd be good for a little bit. I could maintain, I could go to work. If I was working at the time, I could be a mom, because it's what they give you when you are when you are diagnosed with ADHD, especially as a child. But then the continuation, the lack of sleep, and all the stuff that comes with it, and then it does begin to affect your mental health.
More quantity.
Yes.
It wasn't doing anything, it wasn't doing enough.
And that goes back to that hole, right, that you were talking about.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit today now, because I want us to go more into your story, but where are you two today learning to cope with that? Because I know a lot of our women have dealt with that.
Okay, so again, I also have ADHD. So I just have to stay busy. Okay. And I'm learning boundaries. I'm learning boundaries with that, because I tend to overdo it sometimes. Okay.
Put a lot on your plate.
But yeah. And but yes, and when even if I'm tired, right? If I'm burnt out,
I usually when I get
it gives me some type of satisfaction, but I also know that that's not healthy. So that's another thing that today I'm dealing with, right? Is to keep those boundaries. And now that I'm pregnant, I'm definitely gonna have to slow my roll.
You have to learn how to control that too.
But what I do is I have all my kids today, so that's what keeps me sane, and it also filled a void that I had for a long time. So being there for my kids, and not just physically, but really having that one-on-one relationship with each and every one of them, because you know it's a set of 5 different eyes. So each one has their own way of looking at me, and I have a relationship very different with each and every one of them. And so that just itself just keeps me busy.
Yeah, really busy.
And also just doing positive things. So for example, I'm going to school. So I'm going to school full time. I'm working part time as a federal work study student at Miracosta College. I'm part of the Transition Scholars Club and the program. So just having community around me and having positive people push me to the best of my ability, and just maintaining those healthy relationships, building a support group, and having a schedule, right? So like my weekends are, you know, the groceries, the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry. I really don't have time to think outside that world that I built.
Yeah.
And you know, I thank God every day, because I don't crave drugs anymore.
Yeah.
you know, I literally got sick and tired of being sick and tired, to where I look back at that whole life, and it gets me sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
What would you say to other women or mothers out there right now that like who've been in similar situations, like unable to get stuck or to get out of being stuck?
Okay, so those, like, the message I would give moms right now that are fighting for their kids, you know, I think I'm gonna focus on those moms, because I feel like, you know, our world demonizes us, you know, as women and as moms. You know, they look at us like we're nothing, like, you know, like, how can you do that, you know? But when your addiction is that cunning, and your addiction is so overpowering, it cripples you.
We really get looked down on.
You know, so when you're in that pivot, like, you know, a lot of women are in that pivotal moment right now, where they don't have their kids, and when you lose your kids, right? When you lose them, and they're either with a family member, they're in a foster home, and they're not with you. That's that pivotal moment where you're either gonna fight with everything you got, or you're just gonna give up. Right? And a lot of parents out there, and not just moms, I mean dads too, you know, they try and they try and they try, but they don't have that right support.
Absolutely.
And that's part of my story. So, you know, when I did end up getting my daughter taken away, I used drugs the majority of the pregnancy with her. She's gonna be 7 in August, and you know, I used up till she was like, I was like 8 months pregnant.